Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Oasis Focus on Finance show. I'm your host, Shafiq Morton, and as always, it's great to be with you. In today's show, we talk to Oasis CEO Adam Ibrahim, who has just come back from Bosnia and Herzegovina, where in the capital of Sarajevo, he received not one, but 2 awards. And we're going to be discussing that and having a look at the world economy, local economy. But Mr. Adam Ibrahim, assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam, Shafiq, and to all the viewers.
Now, we're not talking about 1 award, we're talking about 2. Tell us something about them. 1 for a fund and 1 actually called a championship award, which I believe is for the management of funds. Just tell us briefly about those.
The championship award is for the promotion of Islamic finance, and in this instance, Islamic wealth management. And it's in recognition for the work the team has done and all the people around Oasis has done. I'm just the leader, so I pick up the accolades, but it's all the hard work of the team at Oasis and the great brand that we've built. And we've built a wonderful global business that has been recognized globally over many, many, many years. And it's good also to be with other peers promoting Islamic finance and with the leaders in Islamic finance. And so it was a great honor and very humbling to get the award.
Tell us about the Global Islamic Finance Award, because this is interesting. A South African company getting an international award in the Balkans.
So the Balkans, the awards travel. Last year, the awards were in Astana in Kazakhstan. This year it was in Bosnia, a national event. And last year it was around the Astana Expo. This year it was connected to the Sarajevo Islamic Halal Fair. And so you're bringing in people and you kind of getting as many functions around those, so it actually boosts all the events, because you have so many different people from so many different countries. And you can not only see from your own industry, but you can then also see what's happening in other industries. So it's just fantastic. So being recognized from a wealth management point of view, again, is, again, we're very humbled by it, but it's really as a result of the leadership, the philosophy, and the hard teamwork, and the great spirit that we have at Oasis, and our focus on detail and making sure we deliver on our promise. What we want to do is protect and grow the real wealth of Muslims, of our clients, in an ethical way, so that over the long term, not in the short term, over the long term, they can meet their needs and make sure they can live with dignity and they can fulfill their obligations like zakah, and also the obligations like sadaqah for those people that are less fortunate. So alhamdulillah, it's a great way of us contributing in that process, and this is in recognition of that.
No, absolutely. Let's get back to the Balkans, because normally when we hear the Balkans, we associate it with a very tragic war of the late 90s. Now it seems to be a growth region. The president of Bosnia and Herzegovina is taking Islamic finance seriously. Just tell us something about that landscape.
So, as you know, Bosnia is mainly landlocked. A lot of the coastal area has been dispossessed. It's also the country, other than Africa, the country most west of the Muslim countries. It's basically was part of the Ottoman Empire, and it's basically landlocked between Serbia. It was part of the old Yugoslavia, and Croatia, which was also part of the old Yugoslavia. So when Yugoslavia kind of unbundled into its relevant parts, the Serbs took advantage of that and attacked Bosnia from the east and the Croats from the west. And it's most probably, firstly, the most beautiful country. just a few years before the war, you had the Winter Olympics. So in Sarajevo, so the infrastructure, we had the World Cup here, and the infrastructure that goes around it. So you had a country and a city with huge infrastructure, a huge heritage and history. Interesting, the heritage of Islam dates back to the period just past the passing of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's a very long time, and to see the damage that's been done, and neighbor turning on neighbor. And what we in this country have got to realize is that we have such a beautiful country like Bosnia. We've got to get on, and we've got to make things work, and we make things grow. So what you have is this beautiful country that on the east wing is virtually a Serbian, and on the west wing is virtually a Croatian, and in the center it's Bosnian, and it's really, really pretty. But then the sadness of going to see Srebrenica and seeing the 8,700 graves, that's most probably one of the most touching experiences you'll ever have anywhere in the world. And, we pray that Allah grants all of those people who are oppressed and die, oppressed, grant them Jannah, inshallah. But all of that, the spirit and the togetherness and the history, and for me as an individual, to see the history, my history across many, many countries, that's the privilege that I have in doing what I do.
Is Bosnia and Herzegovina, are they rebuilding themselves? Because rebuilding is something that interests us in South Africa as well, renewal of economy and all those terms.
Yes, you must remember what's happened here is a complete destruction of an economy, total destruction. So yes, they are rebuilding, but it will take a long time for them to regain what they had, because their capital base has been destroyed. But they're doing a wonderful job. And then those Bosnians who had to leave and live in Germany and Switzerland are investing very heavily back into Bosnia. So that renewal process is happening. And we need to try and do more trade with people who are oppressed, more trade with people who, are striving to build a better life and have honor and dignity. And so it's a virtuous circle if we visit, we trade, and because that's the best way of uplifting and the most sustainable way of uplifting. So it's a beautiful country. Interesting, it's so green, it's got so much water. It's got the third most water. It's a small country, the country with the third most water in the whole of Europe.
Wow. Okay. Cape Town, we like that.
Yeah. And so I was standing, in at a water point where the water gushes out of the mountain at 10,000 liters a second or something like that continuously. And, just to see the amount of water and thinking about the 50 liters a day that we had to go through. So inshallah, we focus on preserving water and becoming more conscious of the environment, because that's the Islamic way, to be more conscious on the environment. So we do not have this global warming, and we can reverse the effects of global warming, because unfortunately global warming and the negative effects of industrialization hurts the poorest the most. So again, if we're socially responsible and we doing something that prevents global warming and the negative effects of industrialization, that is the best thing that you can do for the poorest members of society.
And of course, this ties right back into the Islamic model of investment, because it's ethical and moral based.
Yes. So really, it's amazing how the many different things that you do is to create equilibrium and equality. And when you have equilibrium and equality, you have great stability. And that's really what we need to strive for. And the more we work towards that, the more equilibrium we will have and the more stability we will have.
Just a quick takeaway in terms of South Africa and Bosnia. Is there anything from South Africa that we are in a position to do in terms of trade, in terms of enriching relationships? Because I'm sure you must have built some very good relationships during your visit.
Yes, we had the president and he participated. And he was very, we chatted for a minute or so, very supportive. I think that what we need to do is, depending on our industries, we need to, through the Turkish Musiad and other organizations, because Musiad and those organizations have very close links with many, many countries in the region, is to work with those global trade organizations and foster relationships, because they've done it before. So they've opened the roads, and so eases the path to trade, lowers the cost of trade, and increases the reward of trade.
Adam, before we go on to the break, just very quickly, you've been out there in the world, as I say in the classics, and sometimes when you go out to a place, it's much easier to see exactly what's happening. Just 30 seconds before we take a break, your overriding impression of the global economy from where you've just come.
So the global economy has been growing as a result of very low interest rates, lots of liquidity, and then the US cutting tax rates. Now, what has happened is most probably we've got used to that very low interest rates for many countries, many companies, many individuals. We become complacent with the high levels of returns. And so what has happened is, as interest rates started rising, as liquidity started reducing, those people with huge debt and those people who become complacent have felt the effects. And many countries are in that position. So many countries in Africa and other emerging markets are feeling the negative effects of very, very high interest rates, very high debt and rising interest rates. So it's having a dramatic effect on those economies. And you're seeing lots of instability in many emerging markets, so including our own. So the global environment, while parts of it is thriving, other parts are starting to do not so well. And what we need to do is, it creates greater need for people like ourselves, because stock picking, when everybody is doing the same, then stock picking doesn't add that much value. But when you have this big divergence between economies, between countries, between sectors, between companies, between individuals, that creates opportunities for people like ourselves to stop picking. So we go from a period where returns were consistently reasonably high from 2008 at the bottom of the financial market to a year or so ago, to a period where returns are subdued, and those people with skills, a long-term philosophy of creating wealth, and that's a perfect environment for us.
Right, you're currently watching the Oasis Focus on Finance show. It's time for a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. And welcome back to the Oasis Focus on Finance show. Our special guest this week is Oasis CEO, Mr. Adam Ibrahim, who's back from Bosnia and Herzegovina, picked up 2 awards, and we're currently having a look at the global economy, and later on we'll have a look at things local. Adam, just to pick up on where we were talking, you gave us some of the signs and the indications of what's happening to the global economy, but there's another interesting point. Economies like China and India have been growing exponentially, but there is a price we pay, isn't there, when we see such rapid growth in certain economies?
Yes. So in the case of both India and China, they've grown in an environment where rules and regulations have not been as developed as they are in other countries. So one of the biggest issues in those countries is the rising debt and the rising risk of default. And that is most probably one of the biggest concerns in the global economy, how the Chinese and Indian economies grow, and could they, a major default impact negatively. But one of the things, further things, is pollution. Mm-hmm. So places like China in particular, but India too, but China's got one of the highest pollution rates in the world. Now in winter, it actually gets, with the weather patterns, the impact on one's health is much higher. So over the last 3 or 4 years, China's been focusing, because what has happened is with high pollution, illnesses have picked up, the burden on the state through hospitals, the burden on companies and industries and families through people not being able to work because of pollution-driven health issues. So the Chinese government has embarked on a program to improve the quality of the air, to reduce pollution, and so that the early phases of that, so you've seen they've been at the forefront of the whole the renewable. So again, to reduce greenhouse gases, to reduce the coal emissions, amongst others, they've been at the forefront of the electric car. Now, for South Africa and for the Cape, it's actually quite fantastic, because the Chinese steel mills have to reduce their pollution, and so they're actually closing down the high pollutant steel mills, or forcing them to reduce their pollution very dramatically. So they need two things. They need higher grade ore, iron ore, manganese, which is all up the Northern Cape, and most of it goes to Saldanha, PE, and chrome. And then, so it's higher grade. So South Africa, fortunately, has got some, and Brazil has got the highest grade ore in the world. And then secondly, what we also have is you can either get the ore in thin sand-like or rock-like. Mm-hmm. And if it's sand-like, you actually need a lot more electricity to convert it. And if it's rock-like, you need less electricity to convert. So South Africa's got two advantages. The Northern Cape's got two advantages. Not only has it got much higher grade, but it's got rock-like ore, which means that you need less electricity. So you most probably need 50% less electricity. You most probably producing 50% less pollution per unit. So the interesting thing about that is that, or for a long time, if the benchmark was, say, $60, it's now nearly $70. And for low quality and fines, so there was a $2 discount. And for high quality, it was a $2, $3 premium. Today, there's most probably a $25 discount and a $25 premium. So if you're at $70, you're getting $95. And if you're at $70, you're getting $45. So that makes a very big differentiation. And so it benefits South Africa. And at a time when our economy needs all the support it can get, we're getting that support not through volume growth, but through higher prices for what we're producing. And that, is an indirect benefit of focusing on quality. And alhamdulillah, those natural resources were placed here by the Almighty.
And we can benefit from it in the most positive sense.
Exactly. So we actually benefiting from China focusing on more pollution. And then what you will have is that is the premium pricing, and then there'll be greater demand, so the volume growth will come through. So we think that, and our portfolios have a big benefit to exposure to that, and we foresaw that. And then as the electric car takes off, the greater demand of Northern Cape manganese, so it's a 50-year story, and that will have their ups and downs, but it will be over a 50-year period a rising curve, and we just need to be patient, and we have been patient, and alhamdulillah, the returns are coming through.
Now, inshallah. Now, let's get to the local economy. You've already pinpointed some positive aspects in it, and obviously at the moment we're seeing lots of doom and gloom. There's the medium-term budget is coming up, and obviously this will be discussed in future programs. But your overlook, your view of our current economic situation in South Africa?
It's most probably similar to the immediate post-apartheid. The apartheid government handed over bankrupt states.
An empty cupboard, yeah.
Empty cupboard. In fact, the loan sharks, we had a massive hedge book, etc. The loan sharks were coming to visit South Africa. Mm-hmm. I'm using an analogy. Yeah. And so it was a difficult time. Difficult times get people to focus on making difficult decisions. And in the early 90s, we had some very difficult decisions were taken, which were created liberalization and reform of our economy. And that set the scene and the foundation for 10, 12 years of fantastic growth, 4%. We were getting up to 5, 6%. Mm-hmm. We were running budget surpluses. Our tax rates were coming down. It was a virtuous circle. But that all was based on two things: the reform, and the reform was tough because you first had to tighten up your belt before you get the benefit, and so very few people want to do that. But the catalyst for that was you were in a very, very, very difficult situation. Mm-hmm. So you were almost in a corner, and you had to make the right decision. I think we're right there again, unfortunately. So it's a very tough environment. However, we need the lead. We've got a leader. We now need all to support our leader. I mean, it's amazing. Today there's a My City strike, and there's been a My City strike for some time. At a time when we should all be putting our, we cannot afford as a country. We cannot afford as organizations, we cannot afford as a city to give those wage increases. So now's the time for all of us to pull in the waist a bit, mm-hmm. to take a bit of tough decisions, tough love as I say it, and so that we can have the environment where we become more competitive, we reform. The state-owned enterprises need private capital. They need better governance, which is happening, but they need better management. Mm-hmm. And you can only get that if you have private participation in that. Unfortunately, public participation is not going to deliver that. And we hope that our leadership, our president, President Ramaphosa, has the backing. I think he's got the plan, but he needs the backing to deliver the plan and to deliver reforms. So we had the first part of reforms, announced, pre-election reforms. So things like the mining charter, things like visas, etc., and the reallocation of expenditure. So that's good. Hopefully it's implemented. But I anticipate post the election for there to be, and especially if the president gets a strong mandate, I think I would anticipate significant reform, which will benefit us for the long term. So it's a tough environment. Now, in the Cape, we benefit from a couple of things. We benefit from that commodity drive due to the Chinese pollution. We benefit from a reversal in the drought. Okay, so the agricultural sector picks up, and then we benefit from a reversal of the drought and an improvement in the visa process. Mm-hmm. So tourism, I landed in Cape Town yesterday from Johannesburg, and the airports were full of tourists flying from Johannesburg to Cape Town. And that's the early signs that people are less worried about the waters. We still have to be very mindful of water.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we've got to create the sustainability. And we should never put ourselves in the position that we were over the last 18 months, because not only did it slow the domestic economy, but it scared a lot of the tourists. And tourism for Cape Town is a very, very big catalyst for growth, for employment. And and then the fourth area that will benefit is those the movie industry, that goes away when you don't have water, because they want to be in places where they can go and swim and have quality of life. You can't tell people, come to Cape Town, we can't give you all of these things, pay a lot of money, they'll just go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So we think that there are a number of short-term positives. What we need is the long-term positives run around reform. And we need to get back to work. We need to be prepared to sacrifice. The issue is sacrifice. That's really what I appeal to everybody at Oasis, but everybody around us. If we sacrifice today, it means that we will have a brighter future for all of us and for our children going forward. Remember, getting on that plane to go live in another country ain't greener. This is most probably, I have the benefit of traveling in many, many, many countries. And the one thing I love is coming back home. And there is no better place than Cape Town.
Of course.
There is no better place. South Africa is good, but Cape Town is amazing. This is most probably, you couldn't get a better advert for Cape Town than today.
Adam Ibrahim, Oasis CEO, shukran for chatting to us, and everything the best for the future.
Shafiq, thank you so much again to our viewers. Remember, we're here to focus on protecting and growing your wealth. This is our time. This is when things are tough. This is when we excel in what we do. We are focused, we're determined, we're passionate to deliver. And, back us and we will deliver for you. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. And that concludes today's edition of the Oasis Focus and Finance Show, in which we spoke to Oasis CEO, Mr. Adam Ibrahim, on Oasis winning 2 international awards in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Stay tuned to the show next week, when we will discuss issues pertinent to you in investment and finance. Should you wish to watch this or any of our other shows, you can log into the YouTube channel at www.oasiscrescent.com. Should you wish to contact us, you can email info@oasiscrescent.com or call 0860 100 786. Until next time, I'm your host, Shafiq Morton. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.